Other than two losses to Michigan, Ryan Day has only lost four other games in his 4 years at Ohio State. Pretty impressive. Does everybody think so? I have the answer. Locked on Big Ten starts now.
You are Locked On Big Ten, your daily podcast on the Big Ten Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Big Ten. I'm Craig Sheeman. Thank you for making us your first listen each and every day. Really appreciate it. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So Ryan Day just wins. A couple of losses against an important team. People want to talk about it a lot. Does he get enough credit? I will give you that answer in just a minute. And why do the Buckeyes really keep rolling? Plus, we have Tuesday tweets, or whatever we're calling them, now that Twitter is changing. Be sure to subscribe and follow on Locked On Big Ten, wherever you get your podcasts. And that way, you'll get the latest episode of this podcast whenever it becomes available each and every day. All right, right off the bat, I don't think Ryan Day gets enough credit as the head football coach at Ohio State. And I'm saying that as a guy that was born in Michigan, okay? He does not get enough credit, and I'll explain why. And look, maybe it's because he just lost those last two games to Michigan, and they were kind of big margins too, and people are cranky about it in Ohio. Maybe it's because he took over a loaded program and hasn't won a national championship. You know, that quote that Jim Harbaugh once said when they were going back and forth verbally, he said, look, some people are born on third base and think they've hit a triple. Maybe that rings true to some people. It resonated with some. Maybe. I don't know. We're going to discuss this a little bit. We're going to talk about Ryan Day and how he got here at Ohio State and piece this all together. So, as you know, Ryan Day started off as a player. He was a quarterback and a linebacker at the University of New Hampshire from 1998 to 2001. One of those old school guys that never left the football field, right? Quarterback and linebacker. That's pretty, you don't see that at all anymore. So he stayed at New Hampshire after he graduated. He coached there, started coaching tight ends in 2002. Then he was a GA at Boston College in 2003. And of course, 2005 ends up going to Florida, which was very important because that's the relationship with Urban Meyer. After that, back and forth, went to Temple, then BC, then back to Temple, and then BC. And while he's hanging out in the Temple area, Philadelphia, he makes a connection. And guess what? 2015, he tries his hand at the NFL and becomes an assistant coach with the Philadelphia Eagles with Chip Kelly and handled the quarterbacks. Coached guys like Sam Bradford and even Tim Tebow for a minute there. That was his last stop there in the NFL. Of course, 2016, he left with Chip Kelly to San Francisco when he changed jobs with the 49ers. Again, working with quarterbacks. And Blaine Gabbert and Colin Kaepernick and guys like that. Eventually, he goes to Ohio State as the co-offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach in 2017, relationship with Urban Meyer, and goes there. Starts working with J.T. Barrett. By 2018, he was the acting head coach at Ohio State for a little while. And, of course, Dwayne Haskins was there and became the head coach overall in 2019 and worked with Justin Fields as he had just come from Georgia. So, and we're going to talk about that's important. His relationship, developing new young quarterbacks. We're going to get into that in just a little bit. And so over the last 4 years, he's accumulated a 45-6 record. That's spectacular by anybody's standards. 45-6, 2 Big Ten titles, and in 2019 was the Big Ten Coach of the Year. But again, I asked at the beginning, does he get the respect that he deserves? Let's look at that a little closer. And I think the first thing you could say is, look, they haven't won a national championship since he's been the head coach. Urban Meyer was, he won a national championship. That's your high bar. That's your expectation, Ohio State. But other than that, the program that he has inherited, was a part of before, and is the head coach of now, really hasn't fallen backward. And by that, I mean, look, they're still competing and winning Big Ten championships. They're still getting into the college football playoffs, and from, only 4 teams make the playoffs. And so from that aspect, he's still keeping them up at a very, very high level. And so I argue, yeah, they haven't really fallen backwards, even though they haven't won a national championship, and that's what everybody expects. The 2 losses to Michigan really stick in a lot of people's craw. He has 1-2 against Michigan, and people don't like that, obviously. Look, Jim Harbaugh went through the other side when he couldn't beat Urban Meyer and Ohio State. And people like to point out he's the first coach of the 21st century to lose multiple games to Michigan. But, okay, he's 1-2 thus far. I want to look back at the 4 losses other than the Michigan game. He had a 6-point loss to second-ranked Clemson in the Peach Bowl in 2019. In 2020, he lost to top-ranked Alabama in the national championship. Okay, he got to the national championship, didn't win the game. In 2021, a September loss to Oregon by a touchdown. Now, it was at home. That bothers some people, but I mean, that's really the one only game that really kind of sticks out in that kind of a category. And then 2022 had the 1-point loss to top-ranked Georgia in the Peach Bowl on a missed last-second field goal as the clock struck 0 at midnight on New Year's Eve. That's it. Those are the losses. All of them. All 4 of them, other than the 2 Michigan ones. Now, Urban Meyer only lost 4 total in his first 4 years at Ohio State. Again, Urban created this high bar that is almost impossible to match. But we're gonna tell you how Ryan Day's doing overall. I got a twist on this. Hang around for this. Follow me through. Connect the dots. Urban never lost to Michigan. He's got that 7-0. They'll build a statue for him for that. In fact, he beat him by an aggregate score of 237 to 189. Most of those games weren't even close. Day has not only lost to Michigan 2 years in a row. They've been sound defeats on the other end, no doubt about it. And he will always be compared to Urban Meyer, who set that bar so high. And in 7 seasons went 83-9, Urban did. 9 losses in 7 seasons. Incredible, no doubt. And he won 1 of his 3 national championships at Ohio State and won 3 Big Ten titles. So let's compare Ryan Day to other coaches. Let's pick, I don't know, how about Woody Hayes? You've heard of him. Woody lost 9 games and had 2 ties in his first 3 seasons at Ohio State. But it was his big 4th year that he went undefeated and won the first of his 5 national championships. Throw in 13 Big Ten championships, and now you got a legend. Maybe we'll hold off on comparing to Woody Hayes. Maybe that's a bad example. By the way, Woody went 16, 11, and 1 against Michigan. And for you youngsters out there, just to paint a picture about the Ohio State-Michigan rivalry, back in 1968, the Buckeyes were up on Michigan 50-14. And Woody Hayes went for a 2-point conversion instead of kicking an extra point after the game. He was, well, why did you go for 2 there with the game out of hand and it was a blowout? He said, because I couldn't go for 3. That's how this rivalry rolls. So kind of set the table just a little bit, painting the picture with where Ryan Day is and who he is following and what he is a part of. And coming up in a moment, I'm going to put it all into perspective for you as we move forward, okay? I want you to think about this and listen to this. We got all that coming up as we continue right here on Locked On Big Ten. We are brought to you by eBay Motors, of course, and for a championship team, whether you're Ryan Day and the Ohio State Buckeyes and trying to get to a championship, you got to have the right players. You got to have the right roster. Everything has to be a perfect fit. Well, it's the same when it comes to your vehicle. Every part needs to fit just right. So the next time you need parts and accessories, head to eBay Motors. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, you can be sure every part you need fits right first time around. Just add your ride to my garage and look for the green check to know that your part will fit or your money back. It's as simple as that. Because just like in sports, confidence is the name of the game when you shop on eBay Motors. And with over 122 million parts to choose from, you'll be back in the game in no time. After all, it's easy to bring home a win with the right parts and when they're guaranteed. Get the right parts, the right fit, the right prices on ebaymotors.com. Let's ride. eBay guaranteed fit. Only available to U.S. customers. Eligible items only. Exclusions do apply. All right, so Ryan Day, he's there ensconced at Ohio State. And the Buckeyes keep rolling and they win a bunch of games. I want you to keep something else in mind. And I want you to keep this in mind as we continue with this podcast on Locked On Big Ten. We're going to talk about this very factor with Michigan, with Ohio State, and Penn State. When we, around the corner, when we switch from 4 playoff teams to 12, unfortunately, I've been against this. Everybody's for it. But I think the number one argument against it is it's going to take all the pressure off the greatest rivalry in sports, Michigan and Ohio State. It's going to take all the pressure. If you let 12 teams into the playoffs, and, you know, we very well could have Michigan and Ohio State be undefeated when they play each other. And, you know, whoever loses, no sweat. Still going to make a 12-team playoff. You're still going to be in the top 10 of the country and get into that playoff spot. So I think it really hinders big rivalries like this. But I'll get on that a little bit more down the road. But it's I feel very strongly about it. There's no doubt about it. But that is something, if you're like Ryan Day, hey, maybe this will take a little pressure off. And if we do lose once in a while, we're still going to the playoffs. We can still fight for a national championship. And also, I'll say in Ryan Day's corner, you know, we talked about Jim Harbaugh yesterday. Ryan Day's not going to be interviewing for NFL jobs every year. I think he wants to be a college football coach his entire life, and I think he wants to remain at Ohio State. Now, he's coached 3 first-year quarterbacks in his time at Ohio State, and the stats jump off the page at you. They are absolutely phenomenal. Talk about Dwayne Haskins, Justin Fields, and C.J. Stroud. The 3 of them together, their first year under Ryan Day, averaged 4,179 yards passing, averaged 9.9 yards per attempt, averaged a touchdown to interception ratio of 45-6, 45 touchdowns to 6 interceptions. Remarkable. And he just keeps on rolling with these guys. He's like the quarterback whisperer. And he's got Kyle McCord coming up this year. But you know what? Kyle McCord should be fine. He's got a young center up front that he's got to get used to. They both have to get used to it together. But other than that, with weapons like Marvin Harrison Jr. and Egbuka Emeka at wide receiver, both are going to be in the NFL. Loaded weapons. Going to make his job a lot easier. Should be another year of a new young quarterback under Ryan Day doing exceedingly well. No doubt about that. So after the Buckeyes season opening game at Indiana this year on September 2nd, there is a tough game around the corner. Week 4 under the lights at Notre Dame. There's going to be a lot of scrutiny there. That's going to be a humongous test for both of those teams. And a lot will be made and figured out once those 2 teams play each other, for both teams, as a matter of fact, because both have big expectations this year. However, if you, and don't forget, Ohio State, you still have Penn State, but that game's at home, at least, on October 21st. So you could be looking at a situation where Ohio State could be 11-0 going into that Michigan game. It's a very, very possible scenario. That means Ryan Day, at that point of his career at Ohio State, would be 56-6. 56-6 if he goes 11-0 into the Michigan game from where he's standing right now. That is a 90% winning percentage over 5 years. Remarkable. By comparison, I'm going to give you a few more to compare, okay? By comparison, he did 90%. Newt Rockne, 88%. Frank Leahy, 86%. Urban Meyer only won 85% of his games as a head football coach. Barry Switzer and Tom Osborne, 84% each. Dabo Sweeney, 81%. Nick Saban and Bob Stoops at 80%. So Ryan Day will go into the Michigan game, he possibly 11-0 with a 90% win rate over the last 5 years. And what if he loses the game? What if he loses to Michigan? And he's 1-3 against the Wolverines. And 0-3 and just over the last 3 3-game losing streak to Michigan. How's that going to sit with Buckeye fans? 90% wins on one side, getting to the playoffs, but 0-3 against Michigan the last 3 years. 1-3 overall if he loses that game. How's that going to sit with Buckeye fan? And is it fair that it sits like that? Because you know the answer to that question. The last time Michigan won 3 in a row and therefore 4 in a row against Ohio State was back from 88 to 91. John Cooper was the head coach of the Buckeyes at that time. In fact, Cooper was from 1988 to 2000. Cooper won almost all of his games, had trouble with Michigan. In fact, he was 2-10-1 against Michigan, but won almost all the rest of his games. In fact, under Cooper, from 1993 to 1998, Ohio State had 3 one-loss seasons, and they lost twice in 95. But in those 93 and 96 one-loss seasons, guess who the one loss was to? Michigan. In the 2-loss season in 95, guess who one of the 2 losses was? Michigan. Ryan Day might be on a similar trajectory. And after Urban Meyer's run, when he went 7-0 against them, maybe people aren't as patient, or maybe won't give Ryan Day the amount of patience that they afforded John Cooper. But Buckeye fans should be. They should be patient. I mean, when you're rolling in every other aspect like that, and everything else is good, you can't be saying, "Oh, he's in the hot seat." Even though 0-3 against Michigan, he would be in the hot seat. He would be. He shouldn't be. Do you know that UCLA basketball coach John Wooden won 80% of his games at UCLA and 10 national championships? 80%. Gene Bartow followed him and only lasted 2 years before he was run out of town, and he won 85% of his games, but no national titles. Pressure. Got him out of there. Ran him out of town. Bottom line is, no matter how things go with the ebb and flow against the Michigan Wolverines, I think Ryan Day will be the long-term, long-time coach of the Ohio State Buckeyes, and I think he'll stay there as long as he wants. I can see him growing old. He's got that beard, a thick beard, and that hair. It'll all turn gray. He'll be old, and he'll still be the head coach at Ohio State for as far as we can see into the future. That's my opinion. Thanks for making Locked On Big Ten your first listen each and every day. You everydayers out there, our next show is going to take a look at Big Ten Media Days coming up in Indianapolis. So be sure to subscribe down below on YouTube and share, follow, and like Locked On Big Ten. We'll love it if you share this with the arrow with somebody that you think would really enjoy Locked On Big Ten. Maybe an alum, a friend, family member. I would love it if you would share, but definitely subscribe. We're getting our numbers up. They're going sky high every day, and it's all because of you guys, and I can't thank you enough for that. Coming up, our weekly feature, we're going to do Tuesday tweets. All that coming up as we continue on Locked On Big Ten. All right, here on Locked On Big Ten, we're going to do our weekly feature. It's Tuesday tweets. Although, with everything going on Twitter, and now it's X, I don't know what we're going to call this segment anymore. I'm perplexed. In fact, hit me up on Twitter or whatever we're calling it, at Talk Big Ten. Let me know. Or hit me with the comments here as well on YouTube. So now it's X. I don't know. We can call them X's, Zeets, Sweets. I don't know what to call them. I absolutely don't know what to call them. Nevertheless, let's take a rundown and look at some of these tweets we picked here today. And the Big Ten has the defenses ranked. You got Michigan at number 1. They got all Big Ten linebacker Junior Colson returning. Penn State at number 2. Manny Diaz, all about getting Abdul Carter. Abdul Carter last year as a freshman, breaking out 6.5 sacks. Incredible year last year. He's back. Iowa. I've been talking up the Iowa defense a lot, and they lost a lot of talent to the NFL, but they got all Big Ten corner Cooper DeJean back. 3 interceptions, 3 pick sixes last year. The guy's just like a ball hawk. You got Ohio State at number 4. Marvin Harrison Jr. getting all the attention on offense, but Tommy Eichenberg and Steel Chambers, their leading tacklers, return. So a lot of great defensive players at Ohio State. Illinois rounding out the top 5. Minnesota, Wisconsin, Purdue, Maryland, and Nebraska rounding out the top 10. and some question marks for Indiana, Rutgers, Michigan State, and Northwestern. This is from at Big Banter Sports. Appreciate the tweet there. And by the way, those of you who are only listening on the audio version, we put these graphics up trying to explain them as well as I can in detail for everybody watching on YouTube. This next one is from the Spartans Wire. Picture of the Spartans at a Michigan State football game. Where would you rank the Michigan State among Big Ten rivalries? And boy, it's right up there. Obviously, number one is Ohio State and Michigan. How high would you go with this one? I personally, look, we all have our favorites too. I mean, I went to Indiana, so I like Indiana, Purdue. But this Michigan State is pretty big. There's no doubt about it. So let's, again, hit me on Twitter on what you think. Also, we have here at Big Ten football, the most returning all-conference players. You know, the Big Ten has 99 all-conference players returning this year. Just quality talent up and down the board. Ohio State leading the way with 16, Michigan 12, Penn State 11, and Illinois has 10 players. Iowa 9, Minnesota with 8 returning all-conference players. Maryland and Wisconsin both with 7, Purdue 5, Michigan State 4, Indiana and Nebraska, and Rutgers with 3, and Northwestern with 1. Here is one from at SWMK Keon. He's got a picture of Matt Rule on it, and at the bottom it says the Big Ten still a starchy league that Matt Rule left in the 1990s. Big Ten football hasn't changed much since Matt Rule left in the 90s, but that is Nebraska's biggest problem because they have changed. And again, Matt Rule, a longtime linebacker at Penn State back in 94, 97, saying that Nebraska has changed. And I'm taking that to mean they need to get tougher and more physical like the Big Ten is used to. At Slater Kinnick, putting out a post a couple days ago, 46 days until Iowa football, and a picture of Iowa. And since it was 46 days till Iowa football, brought up the old number 46 and George Kittle, and reminding everybody that George Kittle came in with a 2-star rating, never received more than an honorable mention from the Big Ten coaches or the media, and then became one of the NFL's top tight ends and a 4-time Pro Bowler. No doubt about it. That's a good story. Late bloomer. Work hard. And Mason Brew, at Mason Brew, texting in, chaos is the ladder in the Big Ten, and only one team can rule the conference realm. Game of Thrones reference there, the houses that will fight for control for the throne. Michigan, Ohio State, Penn State, Iowa, Wisconsin, whoever you want to throw in there. They are all going to try and get the throne at the end of the season. Good analogy there. And that is Tuesday Tweets. I want to thank you guys again. Always, I am very humbled. All the subscriptions, everybody subscribing on YouTube, and everybody listening. It's fantastic. I want to thank you for making Locked On Big Ten your first listen every day. Every dayers, our next show, we'll take a look at Big Ten Media Days this week. A lot of questions in the upcoming season, and I know you have them too, and we want them answered. So we'll be paying very close attention to that this week in Indianapolis. Many ways for you to contact me in the meantime, of course. And that's at Twitter, at Talk Big Ten. And be sure to subscribe and follow this podcast right now on your favorite podcast app, and you'll get the latest episode of Locked On Big Ten as soon as it becomes available each and every day. So check out the Locked On Sports Today podcast as well for all the latest on everything going on in sports. So great visit. Can't wait to our next visit. Thank you for checking us out. Want you to have yourself a great day, and I appreciate you listening to Locked On Big Ten. I'm Craig Sheeman.